Hi, everyone. I'm Corion, your witch in residence, and tonight we have more of a somber tone. I thought it would be good and important and reasonable to decide to talk a little bit about Queen Elizabeth and what she meant to people and what she means to you guys as well. So, anytime, feel free to reach out in the chat. I will answer chats as best I can. Um, we may get a few visits along the way from some other people. If we do, we'll invite them in as we go, and we'll go from there. So I'm just going to read a little bit of a quote I saw here. Some people have been such a part of the global consciousness for the past century that they transcend monikers like celebrity or even icon. Queen Elizabeth II was the greatest among them. When Elizabeth ascended the throne in 1952 at the age of 25, um, it was an incredible time, right? I mean, she was now the queen of the entire British Commonwealth. Um, Elizabeth was an accidental queen whose father became king, George I believe the fourth, after his brother Edward, or sorry, the sixth, I believe actually, after his brother Edward advocated the throne to marry the American socialite Wallace Simpson. During World War II, the 14-year-old Princess Elizabeth made her first broadcast radio address on the BBC's Children Hour to give hope and encouragement to other children suffering during the conflict. In 1945, Elizabeth joined the women's branch of the Royal Army, known as the Auxiliary Territorial Service, the first female royal to do so. She was trained as a driver and a mechanic, actually. Um, there's a quite interesting story I was reading long ago about these two airmen that had crashed and they were trying to find their way back to a base, and they came across a pair of legs under a military truck, and they first called out and said, "Hey, do you need a hand getting the truck going?" And they heard a woman's voice call back saying, uh, "No, boys, I've got this one. She's just about to start." And she climbed in, got everything going, and that was Queen Elizabeth. And she gave those boys a ride back to base, and they were ready to go again, but they were always astonished to have been given a lift by Queen Elizabeth. Additionally, she was also the first female monarch to receive a driver's license. And when the Saudi king actually visited, at the time driving was forbidden, believe it or not, but in his country, they actually arranged for the queen to drive this Saudi king around so that she could show him that she could. Um, so going back to it, I mean, after Elizabeth's coronation, she presided over a declining the declining British empire, but she evolved the monarchy away from active rule into a ceremonial rule, and she remained very much the master of ceremonies throughout her life. She's she was a very special lady, and she presided not only over the rise of the British Empire, but yeah, not only over the rise of the British Empire and the fall of the colonialization, but when you think about it, she's done so much for women's rights in her time. Everybody in the Commonwealth who becomes a leader of their respective country does have to get at least, meet with the queen to get permission. So in a lot of ways, she's actually responsible for all the women leaders in the Commonwealth in an interesting way. She also put forward a rule that changed the rules of succession so that women would be part of the line of succession in such a way that it just went by birth order, no longer by birth order than gender. So it's a pretty fascinating thing that she's done in her life, and I thought it would be a good idea to celebrate it a little. There's another little piece here that I thought would be interesting to share, and that's my father, who's military man, was actually a member of the Governor General's Horse Guard in Canada. Now, that's a regiment that specifically was designed to mimic the Blues and Royals, which is the premier regiment in the UK that is specifically responsible for guarding royalty. So when the Queen came here during the centennial for the Queen's Plate, my father was actually one of the honor guards for her. So it's been a joke in my family for a long time that while she was sitting in the Queen's box, he was the one of the official guards for the Queen. So there, I have a little bit of a personal connection to that in kind of an odd way. But I think if you talk to most Canadians that have followed um, Elizabeth throughout her life, we all feel like we were kind of I don't know, I guess one of the children of the empire that she always had a soft spot for. She visited Canada more than any other nation. Um, she always seemed to take a special joy in visiting some of the interesting places in Canada. And I know I speak at least for my family that we've always been very interested in her and watching her and learning about her life. And I think there's a lot to say. But I would like to hear from you guys. I know that there's some people out there in the chat. I'd love to hear what you guys say and what you guys think about all this. And if you guys are at all interested in any of it, so feel free to chime in. Um, while we talk about that, I also kind of wanted to mention some of the other things I've been watching today because we had a lot of suggestion that something like this was coming. If you knew what to look for the signs, you could tell. When BBC anchors came in with black suits and black ties, you knew something was up. And the British police were erecting barriers around Balmoral with the princess being called in. Usually they don't call them in when she's just got the flu. So something big was up. And when I saw those signs, I kind of reached out to some of the other YouTube famous people out there and gave them the heads up. And all of us were sitting there hoping this wasn't going to be the case, but kind of knowing it was going to be. Um, I think another interesting piece is, as some of you know, I, for a long time, was on a show for pop culture. And one of the traditions we had for a very, very long time was when we were setting up the show notes, one of the first things that we always said was, this is going to be the show, unless, of course, the Queen dies, in which case we will be doing something special. Well, I'm no longer part of that show, but I feel like it's important to do something special and discuss her and discuss her impact on the world. And she's had a fantastic one. She's lived a beautiful life of service to her people and really all the people of the world. She's visited everywhere that I think you can visit. Try to talk to as many people and try to understand them as possible. Um, she bred one of my daughter's absolutely favorite animals of all time, the corgi, believe it or not. Um, but, you know, in the last 10, 15 years, she stopped breeding corgis because breeding corgis meant that she didn't want to leave them for somebody else to take care of. So she took care of the last of her pups. Um, yeah, it's an absolute tragedy. And I thought it was worth discussing how we all feel about it and discussing where we all want to see things go for a future. Because while it is sad, this is the beginning of a new era and a changing era. And it's going to be a time of pretty heavy duty uncertainty when it comes to the monarchy and its relevance and the new voices that are going to take up the mantle in its place. We now have a King Charles and a Queen Consort. And I think that's a very interesting place to be. I'll be honest with you. I always knew I'd outlive Queen Elizabeth, but it never seemed real to me that I would. It always felt like she was going to be there forever. And now that she's not, I find I'm missing her. And I know that other people have to be in the same boat where they feel she's missing, and that we all need to process that icon slipping into the annals of history. But I mean, she was the longest reigning monarch. She was the first monarch to actually deliver an address on television. Um, I remember watching recordings of it. To be honest, a tradition in my house is every Christmas we watch the Disney parade, and then we listen to the Queen's address. And I'll admit I've gone back and listened to all of the Queen's addresses throughout all the years. I just found them fascinating and a beautiful encapsulation of a year in review. And I'm going to be honest, I'm going to miss hearing her voice um, come Christmas this year. So we've got douchebag Kylo. Um, I always had this morbid belief that she would outlive Charles. You know what, douchebag? I kind of felt that way too. Like, Charles is in his 70s. It was entirely possible that, he's lived a very busy, very, very active life. I always thought it was possible that he could go first. And I mean, that would also be a tragedy. But, um, in a lot of ways, I'm glad he's lived to this point. Um, I'm very happy that he's gotten an opportunity to succeed Elizabeth. I do hope that he does not decide to stay as king indefinitely, like until his passing. I hope he chooses to take an opportunity to enjoy a retirement, um, and possibly, live a more relaxing life than his mother got to lead. That's my hope for him. I hope he has a wonderful rule, though, and long live the king. But I truly hope that he also gets the opportunity to live as the person he wants to be, which I think all of us can agree would be a wonderful thing for any of us, right? I mean, he's in the unique position that he actually could do that. He can do more or less whatever he wants. And I hope he chooses to live a wonderful life doing that. So thank you, douchebag Kylo. It's always awesome to see you here. I appreciate you being here. Um, yeah, I think that's the big thing for me. Oh, while while you hating, long live the king. Yeah, there we go. Right? I mean, it's interesting too because when you think about it, there's going to be a lot of changes in the next while. Um, Not only are they going to be changing, of course, their national anthem, which changes every time a monarch passes to reflect that, but they're also going to wind up having to change all the money in Canada too. The Queen is on everything here, and it's all going to change. I remember when I was a kid, I actually came across I believe, yeah, it was a King. I want to say Henry. Um, yeah, King George coin, and I wasn't sure what the heck it was. I didn't realize how old and valuable it was at the time. But we're going to wind up with Charles on the money for a little while. And I think that's great. I think that's going to be an interesting time, and it'll definitely mark the changing of a lifetime. So, to my American friends, it might be worth coming up and visiting Canada as soon as you can and picking up some of the last money with the Queen on it. Might be worth some commemorative purpose later down the road. I know I'm going to be saving some money with the year on it just to be sure we've got it. Um, Also, probably some other commemorative stuff because I think that's a good thing to have. Why you hating saying many pieces are now moving? Yeah, I can expect that. I expect there's probably going to be a little bit of a run on things. Um, I can only say it would help. I know that the British economy's been in a little bit of pain as everyone else's has been, but I can't imagine what's going on now is going to help it at all. Um, so hopefully, the decision gets made by people to invest a little bit, maybe buy a little bit of the money, strengthen up their economy because I think they're going to need it. I think it's going to take a big hit, and until everyone settles, because at the end of the day, really, when you think about it, modern day, the monarchy is a symbol, right? It's a symbol of the British tenacity for survival, and the calm reserve that has always been the hallmark of the British people. And when it changes like that, it definitely causes instability in subtle ways that we can't even predict yet. So I feel like as Canadians, we're the kid that's been around, but as our American friends, I mean, you're always been kind of the older brother to us that moved out early and made their own way. Maybe it's time to go, check in on mom, make sure she's okay. And douchebag Kylo. See, this is why we wait until our leaders have passed to put them on the money. Very few of them return, forcing a change. Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, I hope that, you know, uh, we see a good long transition there and a good long reign here. Why You Hating comes right back. King Charles III, as he will now be known, is famous for caring about the little guy. His charities have been doing a lot of good work. Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, we are moving into an interesting future, and King Charles has always been a big individual that's put forward the ideas of the little guy, and hopefully he carries that into his reign. Hopefully he looks after the guy who doesn't have a voice otherwise, because I feel like that is the best thing the monarchy can do, really, is be that symbol, use their influence, their power, their grace to help those who really could use the help. And I hope he chooses to do that. I hope he chooses to follow in his mother's example of how great a person can be with a quiet reserve, without making a big, you know, how about this? Without signaling their virtues, just simply expressing their virtues through their actions, which I think a lot of us can agree would be is a wonderful way to be, and is how we should all try to focus on being. So, Why You Hating douchebag Kylo, thank you guys very much for showing up. You guys are awesome. You guys show up, I think, every time I run a live stream, especially on a Thursday. You guys are great. Um, I really appreciate you guys. Keep being super cool. So yeah. If anyone else has any other stuff they want to say, feel free to do so. Um, I think that's the big stuff I wanted to say, is just how wonderful a legacy she's leaving. I mean, when you think about all the stuff she's been a part of, the fact that, she started her reign really as the kid who no one ever thought she was going to become queen. She was pretty much not supposed to. Her brother was going to take over when their father died. In fact, when she got the call saying you need to get back home for your coronation, she was actually in Africa, kind of just chilling out and having a good time. And she gets the call and she has to rush back because her brothers advocated, and it's up to her now. And I mean, reading her memoir, I mean, you can definitely feel that, and the memoirs of those around her, you can definitely feel like she never expected the job. She never thought this was going to be her gig, much less be ruling for almost 75 years, right? Douchebag Kylo. I don't make it every time, but I try to make it when I can. You have important things to say, and I appreciate that. Well, dude, I appreciate you, man. I mean, you're absolutely wonderful to have here. Why You Hating? All the guys that put forward the effort, man. I can't express how cool it is that you guys take the time to listen to me and think that I've got something to say worth saying. So dude, it's awesome to me. Here we go. My mother works in the healthcare industry, and she is surprised how fast the queen apparently passed away. We woke up this morning hearing that she was in the hospital in observation, and then this evening she was gone. What I understand was she was actually sick for more than a little while beforehand. She had gotten a chance to speak to the new Prime Minister of Britain, and get that sorted out. But after that, she just seemed to be done, and everything kind of went downhill from there. So here we go. I've always been leery of any royalties. So much corruption in the world, but I do recognize the symbol she represents. Let that symbol be your legacy. Absolutely, right? I mean, I think we can all agree that, we've all heard I mean, none of us have been in monarchies in the modern era that had this problem, but we've all heard of royals that weren't living up to the legacy of their forebears. And I think Queen Elizabeth charted a completely new legacy, and a really wonderful one, as a symbol of hope and a symbol of stability. And, in a lot of ways, an optimism for the future with her charity and being, she was a royal, but she served the people just as much as people looked to her for guidance. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And why you hating? You're welcome, dude. Why you hating, man? Like, I just love the fact that we're all getting along here, and that we have that kind of community here, that we do all get along, and I think that's great. So yeah, guys, um, just straight up, thank you for being awesome and being here. I felt like this was something that needed to be said, needed to be said today, because the next couple of weeks are going to be filled with a lot of pomp, a lot of circumstance, and a lot of indecision as to where the future lays. And I thought it might be a good idea to sit down now and just, have a quiet sit down acknowledgement of a great lady being passed. And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, look, even if you take away the queen aspect of her, she just seemed like a woman who desperately tried to run her family in a manner that represented the good work that they were trying to do. And look, yeah, there might have been missteps along the way, but hey, man, all of us have missteps along the way. All of us fall, but she always seemed to be able to get back up, put on that stiff upper lip, deal with what was going on, and do so in a way that showed a level of poise and grace that I think we could all aspire to. All right. Oh, and here we go. Oh, and a lot of royal traditions that must now be upheld. Yeah, there's apparently a huge amount right now going on in Balmoral. Supposedly there are um, events going on at Balmoral that the public doesn't get to see right now to coronate Charles. Some of them are written down, and apparently some of them aren't. So it'll be fascinating to see what leaks. It'll be fascinating to see what happens. There's a lot of changes coming, and a lot of interesting, fascinating things that are coming to light that I think will be interesting to see. I mean, let's be honest, none of us alive right now have ever seen a royal coronation happen, right? The the uh, British news service, no one alive there has seen this happen, right? I mean, 1956, I think, was the last time anything like this occurred. And anybody who was there, man, they would have retired by now. Or at least I hope they would have been able to retire by now. I would have wanted to retire by now. So, 75-year career seems like an awful long time for anyone in media. So, this is all new to a lot of people, right? This is going to be a new, unique time with a lot of interesting things going on, and hopefully a lot of opportunity for us to pay tribute to a person we all figured was going to be part of our lives basically forever. And, also pay tribute to the new person on the block, which is amusing to say considering he's in his 70s, right? We've got an interesting world we're moving into where, our king is going to be 70. The His successor is in his 40s. This is a new era, and I think it'll be interesting to see where the road goes. I've been saying for years, and my prediction is that when Charles is in charge, he's maybe going to be king for 5, 10 years before he decides to step down and goes on, right? So, Poyo Zapados, my friend, my brother, my, you know, my one of my best friends here. Um, what does the change of power entail, and who is taking the crown? Well, Charles is taking the crown as king. Camilla will be the queen consort, which is it basically is not the full queen, but is considered for all intents and purposes the queen. She cannot be the full queen because, of course, she remarried, so they had to have a new title for her. My understanding is there will be after the funeral is completed for Elizabeth, there will be he will be taken to the primary church of England. He will be brought into the Great Hall. He will then be given the crown by the Archbishop in a very beautiful ceremony, and will sit and he will take a seat as the reigning monarch. Honestly, I have not personally gone back through the back footage and tried to see the coronation ceremony. I do know that there is a very specific stone that the I believe the reigning monarch has to sit with, right? Um, so it'd be interesting. We got a message here from Philip Blair. A lot of people fought and died in a failed attempt to have Bonnie Prince Charles made King Charles. It's taken longer than they wanted to have King Charles. He's not a Stuart king. That's fair enough. Um, there is a long and fascinating British history that has involved the name of Charles many, many times. Um, I'll be honest with you, my British history is not super in depth into the classic lives of kings. I know that the Stuart. Oh, and Proto Badger. Hail, brother. Proto Badger. Dude, okay. Everybody who's listening here, I'm going to take a moment here to share my profound respect for Proto Badger. This man is a smith that makes some beautiful toys. Please go check out his work. He makes a level of blacksmithing work that is second to none. Go check him out. Buy his stuff. Proto, I'm gonna have to talk to you at some point because my father's even expressed interest in seeing if you can do a Frankish axe for him. So I'm gonna have to talk to you later, but I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, so I know there's a specific stone that all the oaths that the British kings have sworn on when they take up the mantle. So I think that's how it shall. That's what is probably going to be involved as well. The crown jewels all have to get passed. There is a lot of functional work that goes into the ceremony itself. Let's see if I can get a quick rundown of the British coronation ceremony. Here we go. Oh, in the meantime, yeah. Honestly, Proto Badger does some dope stuff, so do check that out. Here we go. So, we're taking a quick look. I'm just going through it right now. So, for English coronations, they were traditionally held in Westminster Abbey, so I got that right, with the monarch seated on the coronation chair. Main elements of the coronation service and the earliest form of oath can be traced back to a ceremony devised by St. Dunstan for Edgar's coronation in 973 AD at Beth Abbey. It drew on ceremonies used by the kings of the Franks and those used in the ordination of bishops. Two versions of the coronation service, known as the Ordines or the Recessions, survive from before the Norman conquest. It is not known if the first procession was ever used in England, and the second, which was used by Edgar and by subsequent Anglo-Saxon and early Norman kings. So it'll probably look like that. That's what I would imagine. Here we go. James the First had the first modern version of it. So, I mean, that was in 1601. Last time we saw it, was in the 1950s. So I expect there's probably going to be a lot more work done on it. And I'm willing to bet we can also expect to see, um, I can also expect to see that there's probably going to be a tour to all the Commonwealth nations very shortly following, uh, and sending down the official, hey, these are my cabinets around the world kind of thing in a big ceremony. Uh, Here we go. Philip Blair. It's like ceremonial magic with all the complex, carefully organized rituals. Absolutely, it is. Well, and when you think about it, it does make a lot of sense for it to be that way, right? Um, if you think about it, when we're talking about a king, one of the things that's always come down is there's a divine right of kings, that the king is, that specific line was chosen by the divine, right? Um, and so when you think about that, there is going to be a lot of complex ritual involved, because it's not just ceremony for ceremony's sake. Um, it's to instill a sense of awe and wonder, not just in Charles, to lay down the seriousness of the office that he's now becoming part of, but also to show people that legacy is continuing and carrying on. I mean, we all have rituals we go through in daily life, and we all have those special rituals that involve families. I mean, a lot of Christians, for example, when they have their first communion, there's usually a party. When we have, um, when Jewish boys reach a certain age, they're called to read in front of the Torah, and there's a party. There's a lot there, right? Um, and I do think that ceremony makes you feel good, but it also makes you feel the weight of what you're involved in, and allows the people around you to see what you are taking on for their community. So I think it's very important actually to have that ceremony. And here we go. And remember, another name for Charles is Chucky. Yes, that is true, but I think I'm gonna be sticking to Charles. I'll admit though, when we had Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger became Pope, I did refer to him as Joey the Rat until, as they would refer to him in Brooklyn, until of course he took up his job as the Pope, and then I kind of let him have a break. And I think I'm going to be doing the same thing for Charles, because I do hope that he has a wonderful and uh, amazing reign. And Proto Badger, are you a blacksmith, woodworker, or both? I'm curious to see your work after what Corian said. Yes, he has a wonderful Facebook page for it. Um, you know what? I'll tell you what, Proto, if you can quickly message me on Facebook a link to your work, I will be more than willing to put a copy to that in the chat for you. And let's see if we can get you a little bit of business, okay? Here we go. I feel bad for Sir Elton John. I got to see him in concert in July, and he's on a month break from our tour, and then this happens. Oh man, yeah. I mean, and Elton John has been one of those titans, and he's been around to be part of a lot of this. So I mean, yeah, I feel terrible for him. I hope I hope he gets an opportunity to say and do something to celebrate her life in his own way. And now I wonder if we'll have to postpone and reschedule his future tour dates, because he is a good friend of the royal family. He absolutely is a good friend of the royal family, and I do think that's a possibility that he will wind up having to postpone just a little bit. But I can imagine that there's going to be a lot of postponements and a lot of schedule changes. Here we go, Proto Badger. This is a link to Proto Badger's work. Guys, please go check out his page. It should be up in a few seconds. Uh, just do so after the show so that you still hang around with me. I don't think I'm going to go too late tonight. I just wanted to make sure that we got all the opportunities possible. Here we go. And why are you hating? Yes, Philip, I think there's a real chance of that. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a good chance that there's going to be a lot of celebrities that are going to be canceling or changing things that they had planned. I think there's a lot of governmental changes that are going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if, it has been tradition that the day of a coronation day, there is usually a holiday or what have you associated with it. So I think there's absolutely a chance that, there could be a day off for all of us, and a chance to view what's going to happen, with the funeral, with the coronation, with all of it. It's one of those. It's a sad time, but it's also in a lot of ways reassuring to see traditions carry on and to get to learn about those traditions. And I think that's really neat. One of the other pieces I did want to mention, when we talk about kind of occult stuff and, um, oh, hold on. I just hope this time around the crown runs smoother. Yeah, I think we all hope that. I think we all hope for a relaxing, straightforward transition without incident, and with a lot of optimism for the future. Because I think that's one of the things we can take away from this too is, she was there for some of the darkest times, but also for some of the lightest times and some of the most hopeful and optimistic times for the future. And I'm hoping we can use this as a watershed moment to look forward to the next 20, 30 years and see what's coming. So, yeah, I think that would be great. I think that would be a wonderful thing. The piece I was going to mention about the occult piece, as you all know, I'm a British traditional witch, and there is a wonderful book, by a man named Philip Heselton, about the life of Doreen Valiente. The title of the book is Doreen Valiente Witch. Um, she was one of the most influential British traditional witches to exist. I do 100% recommend reading this book because it also talks about her involvement with the royal family. And I know in preparing for this, I was talking to my good friend and good friend of the show and really good friend to everyone, Kamran Pasha. And he was going, hopefully one day we find out more about the occult history around the royal family. And I just posted this book to him, and now he's going to get the opportunity to see at least a glimpse into that relationship. And I hope you guys do take an opportunity to take a look at that. Philip is a friend of mine. He's a really cool guy, and I would recommend checking out his other books. Although I'm going to be honest with you, Philip, I love you a lot, but man, your books can get dry at times when you're just talking history. So I do hope Charles generally gets to express his love for the little guy. Yeah, I think we all do. I think I would love to see a exploration for Charles of what he can do for those who are not as fortunate. And I hope he gets the opportunity to do that. I think that would be wonderful. I think that would be great for everybody. Um, and I think it would fill us all with a lot of hope and a lot of positive chances for the future. I think that'd be great. I think one of the things that I would love to see him do is use his new influence to take the charities that he supports that look look after the less fortunate. I really hope he uses this opportunity to really buff those guys up and make something special of them. Here we go. What's the book on the British royal magic tradition called? It's not specifically about the British royal magic tradition. It is about the woman Doreen Valiente. She was an accomplished witch. She actually worked at Bletchley Park during World War II and had very interesting relationships with members of the royal family at the time. So I will post a quick link here in just a second once I pull it up to the book. I do recommend checking it out. Here we go. Here we go. Doreen Valiente. Here it is. I'm just trying to find a good copy of it for you guys. Okay. So I've got it on Thrift Books here. But I mean, from this information, you'll be able to find it. I do recommend taking a look at this. There's the link. Okay. It is a super cool book. Um, I think it's pretty awesome. I don't know if that came across well. Give me a second here to see if I can give you a better piece of it. The book you're looking for is actually called this. And it's about her life. It's a fascinating read because honestly, she was a pretty cool lady. I mean, anybody who was working, trying to break the Enigma code by day, witch by night, you can imagine is a little bit of a superhero. And especially when you're hobnobbing with some of the royal family, um, and doing witchy things, things can get kind of interesting. So do check out the book. I don't want to spoil it too much for you, but I will say it is a fascinating read. And Doreen is a fascinating person. So do check her out. She's super cool. She's actually one of the people that really influenced my line of British traditional craft. Um, I love reading the books that she's actually published about craft because I think they're some of the most complete on the philosophy behind a lot of this. And, I feel that's important too, right? Here we go. Was she one of the witches that were asked to be a spy? Well, I won't ruin it, but I would say that if you're working there, it's kind of a given that you're going to be. Here we go. And Philip says, I recognize her. I'm sure I've seen her face somewhere before. I'm Listen, man, I'm sure you have. She was everywhere. She's also got that okay, I don't want to stereotype or anything, but she's got that very British look to her that is just, you know, she looks like she could be anybody's grandmother, but at the same time, she's also kind of unique. Like she's a really fascinating woman, really cool, and worth checking out. Um, she's got a lot of history and a lot of fascinating history behind her, and part of that kind of secret history that was involved in kind of the background of World War II, where it seemed like anybody who was in any way famous afterwards was involved in so many amazing and fascinating things. Like there's a reason why they call them the greatest generation, right? So here we go. Called The History Guy. I recommend checking his channel out. Yeah, absolutely. If you're interested in British history at all, do check out The History Guy. He does a fascinating look at it. I also recommend the channel Extra History. They haven't really covered the British monarchy that much, but it does give you context for everything that was going along in the world in those eras where the monarchy was really doing a lot of interesting things. So do check out both The History Guy and Extra History if you get a chance. So yeah, they're amazing. And yeah, Philip, like I said, man, give her a shot. Um, she's an interesting read. Um, yeah, so no, when we get back to the Queen a little bit here and everything that's been going on, I mean, when you think about it, she's more or less presided over every wonderful thing and every scandal in Britain over the last 75 years. That's a lot of weight on somebody. Oh, here we go, Philip. I wonder if they showed her in that documentary on the occult battle of Britain. That might be somewhere I've seen her before. They absolutely did. Um, Philip, if you want to know more about the occult battle the occult battle of Britain, do check out the book Lammas Night. I cannot stress this enough. That Okay, I have to be careful how I answer this. I can tell you that the only things that were changed in that book from what actually happened were in order to protect the individuals involved. But I have seen the internal records. I have met with some of the people that were at some of those rituals, and what they were doing. There was a complete and total shadow war going on behind the scenes in World War II between the not great, um, the bad guy German occultists and the British traditional witches, along with many other factions from many other groups. Um, and it's a fascinating thing to look for that. Here we go. Let me find you a copy of the Lammas Night. It's Lammas, Night as in Night. Let me find it here. It's a book by Catherine Klutz. Let me see if I can. Here we go. Lammas Night by Catherine Klutz. Here is the book. I'll post the name for it here. There you go. This book is absolutely fascinating, and it is really the best um, rundown of the events that happened. It is crazy what all was going on there. Here we go. Beating the algorithm. The square mustache. Yeah, exactly, right? Um, I've been using those really, really terrible guys from World War II. Um, the tan shirt brigade, I think, also works really well. Um, the long and short of it is, not good people. Totally understand why YouTube has that in place. It does take a little bit of mental gymnastics on our part. I think that there are good reasons to have the algorithm go forward and hunt that word down. I just wish it didn't hunt it down on this channel, because we in no way at all support or endorse that kind of lifestyle. Here we go. I know the Germans and British were heavily involved in occult activity, but what about the Japanese? Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. The Shinto priests, as my understanding goes, for what was going on there, were absolutely doing everything they could to prevent a um an invasion of the island by US troops in terms of manpower. I don't think anyone expected the US to not land at all and go on a bombing campaign. Um, so in that way, in a lot of ways, I do think that the Shinto priests, in a weird way, were successful. They just didn't count on different tactics from the Americans, which I think speaks to one, the Japanese mindset, which I have a lot of respect for, and well, the modern mindset anyway, and two, the ingenuity of the Americans in terms of how they were fighting that war, which I think also needs to be respected as well. Here we go. We call them blind Germans. It's fitting because they were so blinded by their ideology and hate that they could not see. Yeah, that's a good way to put it too. Um, I think any euphemism that we use that appropriately expresses our disgust at their attitude, I think, is completely acceptable in my books. So long as Mama Susan and the algorithm try not to shut me down, I will use any euphemism you guys prefer me to use in that regard. Um, you name it, I'll back it. So, yeah, and I mean, speaking of too, I mean, and getting back to Elizabeth and her role in World War II, when you think about it, she didn't have to be out in the streets of London getting trucks to roll and, grabbing people and supplies out of bombed out areas and making sure they got to safety, right? She didn't have to be working in a motor pool, but she did, right? And I think that showed a dedication to the people that she truly cared about and truly valued. I also think it's very interesting that, this is actually a very little known fact about Queen Elizabeth. She was a motorhead, eh? She was super into cars and working on them as a hobby. Um, it actually got to the point where, she couldn't work on them anymore, and she had a fleet of private vehicles that she enjoyed working on. And my understanding is she actually brought in other mechanics to help her on some of the stuff as she started getting older and couldn't quite work the spanner the way she wanted to anymore. And I think that's super cool. I think it's neat that we had this fantastically traditional British woman that we had a view of in public, but in private, she sounds like so many of us, right? I mean, you know, on one hand, she's this prim and proper monarch presiding over ceremony after ceremony. And on the other hand, she's a motorhead that liked, hanging out in the garage and playing with her pups and doing all that. And I just think that's fascinating. Why you hating? I've been meaning to ask this for a while, a bit off topic, but what dwells in that fish tank behind you? That is actually not a fish tank. It is a terrarium that has my Saharan Uromastyx in it. Saharan Uromastyx are a pretty rare species of reptile. He is a strikingly bright red. He is incredibly shy, and he's actually already gone to bed. But they are a fantastic critter. They're primarily vegetarian, and they have a tail that I guarantee you can cause some serious damage. This little guy came into my possession after coming from a very abusive home, and we were trying to rehabilitate the poor little guy. We call him Old Lace for the record. Um, Old Lace was terrified of women. He still is. In fact, when my wife or my daughter or the girlfriend walks in, he will go and hide because he's so afraid of women. But after sitting with me for, yes, a lizard, Philip, um, he after sitting with me for a long period of time and me gaming and me just being moving very slow and talking very calm and relaxed to him, he actually warmed up to me. And he will occasionally come out and hang out with me when I'm here and working. He also has a little exercise wheel in there. And, because it's me and I'm a nerd, he also has a Stargate along with some other, Egyptian-y kind of looking terrain in his tank. So, yeah, here we go. I like that she loved animals like horses and dogs. Yeah, she was a corgi breeder, right? I mean, like, now, horses are kind of a given, right? I mean, there's a thing about girls and horses. I don't totally understand it, but I mean, I dig it. Um, and yeah, that's, I think that's really cool about her. And here we go. A lizard. Yes, a lizard, a fun little guy. Here we go. All critters are a gift. I agree. I have, so we run a little bit of a reptile rescue here, and at some point I'm going to have to get all the kids uh, on camera. But I have the Uromastyx, I have a leopard gecko downstairs, and I have a pair of oxalotls right now. Oxalotls are these crazy Mexican kind of salamanders that live their entire life in water. Um, Normally, they're really aloof and are almost blind, but I have like the two weirdest oxalotls in existence. Um, One of them is kind of a regular sized oxalotl, and one of them is a giant oxalotl. I don't know how I got a giant. I just did. If there was an oxalotl basketball team, this dude would pretty much be the captain of it. Um, and whenever I walk into the room, they swim to the front of the tank and wave at me and actually try to say hi and see what I'm doing and take a general interest in what's going on outside of their tank, which is very, very unique. And yeah, they're a lot of fun. And Philip, cool, low. I love Stargate too. Yeah, honestly, I've been a huge Stargate fan. I was really sad when it went off the air, but there is good news. MGM has been bought by Amazon, and hopefully, Amazon will start up a new series. Brad Wright, who's the executive producer, has been pitching them a new series. Supposedly, it's going to take place in modern day when the Stargate program has been revealed to everyone. So who knows? We might be getting stories of regular average Joes going through the gates. Here we go. Boys and horses too. Horse was actually my first word. But I'm okay, yeah, fair enough, Philip. Look, I think horses are kind of a neat creature, and you know, here we go. Yeah, I just looked them up. You weren't kidding. The tail looks like a rasp. Yeah, and it's brutal, man. In their normal environment, they live in a very craggly part of the desert, and they will jump into a hole with their tail sticking out, so that they can smack whatever predator is coming to get them. So they're a pretty awesome little creature. Here we go. All right. Yes, Stargate is coming back. Yes, it is. Here we go. Brad Wright has been speaking about finishing the Stargate U storyline, which makes me very happy. I'll be honest, I wasn't super into Stargate U, but I do appreciate that they were doing it. I did think it was good. I personally liked SG1 and Atlantis over U, but I mean, I still thought it was pretty good. Here we go. That was done to Star Trek and Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. I feel like, yeah, I mean, look, if they do a terrible job of it, like Amazon is learning quite quickly that if you don't show respect to the original source material, the original fans don't show up for things. So personally, if it's not good, I will say it's not good, and then I will stop harping on it and I won't give it any further oxygen. If it is good, though, I will be singing its praises from the rooftops. I don't care if I have to go on every single YouTube show in existence to sing its praises. I will do so. I will be that Stargate guy, for a lack of a better word here. I always hated Stargate SG1, or rather, I hated it until I actually watched it. A lot of people feel that way. Um, it's an interesting concept to get behind. When you think about it, the Stargate opens up opportunities to go anywhere, but still be able to end the show back at Earth, like in an Earth base. So it provides a lot of interesting opportunities, right? And sounds like a ninja lizard. Yeah, I mean, there are other lizards I consider kind of more crazy ninja than that, but man, Old Lace is a fun little thing, if not a bit of a grumpy old man, and that's what I love about him. Here we go. Without respect, we reject. Case in point, Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. Yeah, look, um, I haven't talked about Rings of Power personally because I just don't want to give it the oxygen. I know that some people feel that harping on a bad show is a good way to up your ratings. Um, I just don't want that negativity in my life. I'd rather talk about the things I love. I'd rather talk about the things I encourage you guys to experience because I thought they were great experiences, and give your feedback on it. And if I see something that I think is unique, I think is fun, I want you guys to try it out because, I think we get a lot of negative feedback out there, and I'd like to give some positive feedback, and I'd like to show through my channel and through what we do here to Hollywood that, hey, there's some really good stuff out there. Go with that, right? Let's talk about what they did right just as much as what some other channels will talk about what they did wrong. Here we go. I love Stargate U, but I can't understand why it wasn't as celebrated by most fans. It's a super nerd acquired taste. Yeah, I think it's the dark chocolate of the series. That dark chocolate isn't necessarily bad, but it can't be taken down necessarily by everyone in the bites that it was given. I think mixing in a little bit more camp, a little bit more fun, a little bit more self-referential humor might have really helped the series, which I think is kind of a hallmark of a good Stargate, but that's just me, right? Here we go. Well, once you're bound to with the wee ones, they want to know more. Odd, but a very special. Yeah, exactly. Here we go. I haven't watched Rings of Power, but none of the reviews I've heard have been positive. Look, I will say this about the show: it's very pretty. Okay, I've watched 2 episodes so far of Rings of Power. It's very pretty, but the problem is the plot goes nowhere except for to show how amazing and unstoppable and bestest ever Galadriel is. and that was a turnoff for me. I would like to see other characters get that treatment. I would like to see. Oh, yep. My lizard friend here has gone to sleep, and his lights off now. But yeah, I'd like to see them focus on some of the other awesome characters out there. Here we go. Love that point of view. Don't bother with the bad, beyond acknowledge it and promote the good. Yeah, exactly, Iron Day. Look, there's enough negative stuff out there. Let's promote what's awesome out there and let's get more eyeballs on what's awesome. Because here's how I look at it. Okay. If we focus on just the negative, okay, they can write us off as haters. Okay. They can write us off as people that are just negative Nellies all the time about everything. And if we only talk about the positive and just completely ignore everything that was wrong, um, then they think we're just wide-eyed, hopeful optimists. To me, what the way to do it is say, yeah, I didn't really like this. Here's why I didn't like it. But here's someone that did something similar right and did a fantastic job of it. You bad thing over here, be more like that good thing. And I think that is an important way to go forward. And I think that is an important way to show Hollywood producers, hey, this is what we care about. This is what we like. This is what we want you to do more often, right? Um, like take Stargate for example. Man, I would love to get Stargate series. I would love to get a Stargate movie to explain what happened to Atlantis at the end of the series. I would love to see, the Stargate Universe crew, what happened to them afterwards. Um, I'd even like to see what happened in the Ori home galaxy after all the crazy events that happened there. Who knows what it could look like? I think that'd be very cool. Here we go. Here we are. Let's see who else we got here. Like the Orville. Yeah, man, I love the Orville. I think it's a fantastic show. When I'm on the Writer Brothers show, I sing its praises all the time. I really want the Orville to get renewed. I think it is the best Star Trek online right now, and I'd love to see more of that. I love the humor elements that Seth adds in. Not every joke lands for me, but it doesn't have to, right? Here we go. They're trying to 24 the franchise with SGU. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, they took it in a little seriouser, a little grittier tone, which was what everyone was doing at that time. I get that, but I just don't think Stargate anything works with it a little bit of humor. Be it them talking about movies that are out right now and going, come on, aren't you a little curious to see what they got right? Like that kind of fun stuff I think is important, right? I have something good to report. The museum battleship USS Texas is now in dry dock undergoing a much needed restorations. Hey man, that's cool. Getting to tour boats like that, it really gives you an appreciation um, for some of the amazing things that have happened in the past and some of the beautiful things that we get to see. Look, massive battleships like that, which are, I mean, admittedly out of favor with current doctrines now. Man, it's amazing to see the amount of mechanical engineering and the amount of work that must have gone into running one of those ships day in and day out. I mean, can you imagine, you know, being on one of those ships and all the things that you would have to do to make it work? I mean, we're talking about a time really before computer assisted targeting. You're targeting some of that stuff manually. That's crazy, right? I stopped watching Battlestar Galactica because it was getting too dark and left me feeling depressed when I watched it, so I didn't anymore. Lol. Stargate you, however, I feel like a slow burn. Listen, I really enjoyed Battlestar Galactica the whole way through. I 100% get where you're coming from, where it got dark. I think the show was always supposed to be dark. I feel like the ship was always supposed to be falling apart, and that was part of the charm of it. I do see where you're coming from, though, and I mean, personally, we had a show where we had the monotheistic bad guys chasing the polytheistic heroes, on this, elaborate run because the monotheists wanted to wipe out the polytheists. So I have a kind of a deep connection to the reboot Battlestar Galactica series. I will also say this: if you're a video gamer, do check out Battlestar Galactica Deadlock. It is a really, really well done space based RTS. And it is the only time I've ever played an RTS where afterwards I will watch the replay of the combat with the music jacked up, and it feels like a sequence from the movie, or like from the TV shows and from the TV movies. So here we go. A slow burn, and I'm still curious to find out what happens next. What a super strange life they'll encounter. Yeah, I mean, there's so many neat things that potentially could happen, right? Here we go. As the saying goes, be careful what you focus on, like attracts like. Sticking to the positive brings more good things and vice versa. So it may be one of the reasons why I like Wonder. Yeah, I mean, that's why I feel the way I do too, right? I mean, I want to I want positive, awesome things in my life. I want to surround myself with you guys, positive, awesome people. And hopefully some of your positivity and some of your awesomeness will, rub off on me, and I can, be a little bit more of a wonderful human being to be around because of you guys. So I hope that remains the same. Here we go. Whoop. Ron Moore's BSG was another show I hated until I started to really watch it. Now I consider it one of the top 10 series of all time, any genre. Yeah, I mean, when I initially heard the pitch, I'm going to be honest with you, I was like, Starbuck as a woman? Come on. He was like the manliest man in the original series. And then Starbuck comes on in the first, the first episode of it. And I'm like, you know, Starbuck is still the most manly man in sci-fi, and I think that was an amazing choice to play her the way that they did, and I think it worked out really well. And I think that's a textbook example of, even if you're not totally sold on a premise, give something a try with your own eyes, see if you like it. If you do, find out why you like it. If you didn't, be able to back it up with, hey, this is my personal opinion on why it wasn't so great. But you make your own decisions, right? Here you go. That sounds like South Park story about the yeah. I mean, about the atheist groups who are at war over what to call themselves. Yeah, pretty much, right? I mean, it's kind of the way it went. Best music from BSG and Easterly View. I get goosebumps just playing that in my mind. Yeah, man, some of the music from BSG, oh man, it was so good. Um, I'm not usually a bagpipe person, but when they add it in with everything else, it works. It really, really works. Um, yeah, in BSG, the old girl had a soul, and I love it. Look, whenever you're going to have a hero ship, whether that's the Enterprise or the Millennium Falcon or even the Defiant in Deep Space Nine, it's a really hard thing to build because it's got to be a character of its own, right? And it's got to change and grow with you, right? It's got to have that feeling as well. And I'm really glad that with BSG they decided to make the ship, this slowly falling apart museum piece that was rushed back into service well before it was ready to be that, or like before it was ready to be anything. And you can feel it constantly falling apart. You can see the rust showing up in places. You can see the deck getting dirty, and I think that's a wonderful idea. Fun fact: Ron Moore originally pitched almost the exact same concept for how Voyager was going to get more and more broken down and beat up, and the crew was going to be fighting throughout Voyager, and they decided to go more of an upbeat, optimistic view, and that's when he left and did Battlestar Galactica. So cool little piece of history there. Uh, well, thank you. Back at you. Hey, man. Look, you took the time out to come here, so obviously you are a man of refined taste and skill, and I just hope that I live up to what you guys want. BSG music was the best. Bear McCready is the man, or Creary is the man. Yeah, he absolutely is. Right. Um, they did a lot of things right. I'd also like to give a lot of praise to whoever was doing the sound direction behind, who said, no, 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 we're not going to have rocket engine sounds in the back of fights. Space dogfighting should be almost silent unless we're hearing it from the pilot's point of view. So here we go. The movie at the beginning of BSG reboot was a great space epic. Yeah, that was wonderful all by itself. Yeah, I think it was perfect. I can't see any sort of problem with that. It was a very well done, very well thought out, very put together thing, right? On her last jump, when the main spars break, seeing the ship ripping, a sad moment. Honestly, for anyone who watched the series through and through, you really feel like the Galactica was a member of the crew, and watching Galactica basically make that last jump and not be able to go anywhere really mirrored the president's journey, as well. As she was getting sicker, the Battlestar was getting sicker, and the fact that she made the last trip to the planet and didn't make it much farther after that, I thought was a very, very beautiful way to do it. And I thought it was a mirroring the character of the ship and the character of the president. I thought it was a brilliant idea. I thought it was pretty beautiful. So, all right, guys, we've run almost an hour 15. Um, I really appreciate you guys all coming out and all being part of this. It was wonderful to see you all. I'm going to close it down though. Um, Guys, thank you for coming out. Thank you for reminiscing about the Queen with me and generally talking about stuff. I really appreciate this kind of stream when something important happens. If you guys want to see more of this, I do for those who are just tuning in, who are new, I do put up a video every Sunday, and on Tuesdays, I am on the Writer Brothers for their pop culture discussion and review. And then every other Thursday, I run Transmissions from the Rogue Council, which is my woo woo show where we talk about crazy occult things, unusual phenomenon. But the rule is with Transmissions from the Rogue Council is they are only up for 72 hours and then they vanish forever. So consider checking it out. Consider coming and visiting us at the Rogue Council. The next time we are going to be talking about DB Cooper and all the weirdness and wackiness surrounding him. So I would recommend coming and checking it out. Good night, everybody. Good night, Kylo, Proto, Badger, Philip, R Day. All of you guys are absolutely amazing. Uh, I love you all. Merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. Take care, guys. Bye bye.